Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Women's Maximum Fitness Podcast. This is episode 18, recorded on Black Friday for those of you who are in the United States. November 27th, the day after Thanksgiving. And this episode is recorded with my first guest, who is from Florida. She's a coach out in Florida, 24 years old, and her name is Sarah Ford Bishop. I started following her just 3 or 4 weeks ago on Instagram and instantly have become a huge fan of hers. She is extremely intelligent, very well educated, and has a ton of experience for someone who is still quite young. But her Instagram and her social media are super impressive because she is constantly posting information that is evidence-based, answering questions, and she has tons of stuff to be able to back up her answers. She answers a ton of questions from her followers with very detailed posts that again have just tons of information, and she presents it in a way that is very easy to understand. So whether you are a newbie to evidence-based information and science, training, diet, hormones, supplements, and she gears a lot of her information towards women. Obviously, it's still applicable to men, but just was super impressed and immediately thought she was going to be a great first guest on the show. So I hope you enjoy this interview. She also talks about her battle with anorexia over the last 6 years or so, and she's a bikini competitor. So I really enjoyed this interview. I really enjoyed her time and definitely want to have her back on the show again. But I hope that you enjoy the interview, and this will also be the first episode that we present on YouTube. So you can find us on YouTube moving forward, as well as Apple, Spotify, and Amazon Audio, I believe it is. So without further ado, here is my interview with Sarah Ford Bishop.
Well, thank you for that intro, Deborah. That was like, I was like, because that's my goal, whenever I post is like, is this easily to digest? Is this too like much, mumbo jumbo, like sciencey stuff? So that's good to hear. And that's always good feedback. But so yeah, my name is, I just got married in August. So my married last name is Bishop. So I haven't legally changed my last name yet, but Sarah Ford Bishop will be my legal name on my driver's license once it's all said and done. But so I obviously big on education, like you talked about. So I have my bachelor's in health sciences from the University of South Florida. And I also have my master's in exercise science, also from the University of South Florida. And I worked in Dr. Bill Campbell's lab there. He's been called, his lab has been called the epicenter of bodybuilding research. So if that gives you guys a little kind of taste of what we kind of do there, a lot of, physique science, a lot of studying kind of already healthy, fit people that just want to be fitter and healthy and, basically look better. Right. So, more about me. I'm 24 years old. I'm from Florida originally. So kind of just Tampa-ish area, my whole life, but I love it here. I'm a baby in the cold, so I don't really ever want to leave. I'm 5'4", so just having a conversation with someone average height but have long femurs, so that's always fun. And I do compete in, I always feel weird saying I'm a bodybuilder because I do compete in the bikini division, but I still am very much bro bodybuilder. love the lifestyle. I would say I've been lifting for, properly for 2-3 years. And before that was, lifting for maybe like total of 4 years, 5 years, but also very much still a cardio bunny.
Yeah.
you know, and not really training properly. Like I had a program where I was doing 10 sets of 10 for squats. So yeah, that was not smart. But you know, more about my background, I guess, would be, you know, part of, I've always knew I wanted to be, I guess I didn't even say what my job is. So I'm a coach. I do online coaching. So, you know, nutrition, training, coaching, you know, health coaching, lifestyle. Most of my, my clients are lifestyle clients, but I do have some competitors as well. And, you know, I knew growing up that I always wanted to be in like the medical field. You know, I wanted to be a doctor at one point, wanted to be a nurse, wanted to be a dietitian at one point. And then when I was my senior year of undergrad, I found out about our exercise science program at USF. So I met with Dr. Campbell, and I was like, at that time, already kind of getting into the bodybuilding kind of lifestyle. So once I learned about that and kind of was thinking about, you know, what direction I could go with my career, I was like, I want to help people before we get in the hospital, right? Or before, you know, we need like more medical, you know, kind of intervention. So that's, you know, why I decided to go with, you know, coaching and exercise science route. And just very passionate about, you know, like you said, educating, you know, big time, because, you know, I have a history of anorexia. So I know what it's like to kind of like fall victim to that, you know, eat less, exercise more, like smaller is better, like that kind of like lifestyle
Right.
or culture, I guess.
I always feel like a lot of times our struggles lead us to our passions, which lead us to our gifts. And I feel like that's probably a lot of what your background was. Even like, I think a lot of us have beginnings with our training where we look back and we're kind of embarrassed by, you know, the programs we followed or what we thought was correct. Um, and that's the beauty of everything that you put out there. It really corrects a lot of that misinformation out there in a really, like you said, easy to digest type of a way. So I think that's awesome. I love, even on your story, people ask you questions all the time and you just have a bank of answers in all of your posts. Like your posts are just diehard education. And it's like, oh, here I have an answer with 4 points right here to answer your question.
Right.
So it's almost like a book. It's like a handy dandy book of like, oh, I want to know about creatine. Oh, Sarah wrote a post about creatine here. And it has, you know, it has the links to the evidence behind it and everything else. So just really amazing, amazing stuff. So what is do you have a sports background or?
Yeah. So I grew up, I mean, like little kid, played all the sports. You know, my dad is kind of my original coach. So, you know, I played you know, all the sports, but the ones I stuck with was basketball, primarily, and played that up until my freshman year of college or of high school. And so played basketball, just co-ed rec, you know, middle school league. Also ran track, cross country, and horseback riding. My mom gave my sister and I both the horse bug. So I've been riding since I was 8 years old. And it's honestly something I've been trying to get back into these last couple of years. My family does own a horse. So I'm very, you know, lucky that, you know, like I said, my mom is, you know, does take care of her still and all that. But yeah, so kind of running was where I kind of got kind of triggered
Yeah.
there as far as the anorexia goes. You know, I was um freshman in or I'm sorry, going into my freshman year of high school, and decided that I was going to go out for the high school cross country team because I thought it would be a great way to meet friends, fit in. I was going to a high school where not a lot of like my neighborhood kids, like friends, were going to. I was going to an IB high school, so, you know, super, you know, high level academic high school that I was all excited about. Anyway, started to run more than I was, and decided to quote unquote clean up my diet, you know, to help my running, which, you
What
know,
did
I'm
that
very,
look like? Like, so what did that look like? Because I also have a history of mostly exercise anorexia, and my eating disorder was coupled with the use of ephedra because this was in the 90s. So the ephedra,
right.
suppressed my appetite, obviously totally sped up my heart rate. And then I coupled it with the running. So my diet was, it's embarrassing how little I ate. It was like things like lettuce, and everything was fat free. So I'm kind of curious, what was cleaning up your diet? What did that look like to you? And where did you get that information from that led you to
Right.
thinking this was a good diet?
So I mean, like I said, my parents raised us to be very, like, we had a very healthy diet growing up. Like dinner, like if I think about it back now, like our dinner was super bro. It was always like, we had salmon or chicken on the grill. And then we always had, broccoli or green beans and then some type of, carbohydrate for a side. And, my mom like would make brownies and everything like that. But like, we didn't like buy Oreos. Like that was at grandma's house, like then we could have Oreos there. So for me, like I was already eating pretty clean. So it started slowly. And I think this happens for a lot of, people with eating disorders. I cut out anything packaged, chips, pretzels, whatever, anything in a package. And eventually my, what was okay, it got down to like yogurt, lettuce, turkey, like meat, like like you're saying, like I remember like throwing away like bread at school that my mom had packed. And yeah, just a good day would be like I think a lot of people think eating disorders, anorexia, and not eating at all. I was eating, but it was like bunny food and turkey, right? So
Right.
so yeah.
Yeah, I
um,
recall I recall it having a salad with fat-free Italian dressing for lunch, but then I would use fat-free ranch at dinner time because it was had a little bit more, you know what I mean? Like, ooh, splurge, like
Splurge, yeah.
so crazy. Half of a Slim Fast shake that I would mix with water instead of milk. You know what I mean? Like
I
every
made some, like looking back, like egg whites and mustard. Like that's pretty bad. Like like it's nasty. But like when you start restricting like that,
yeah.
your taste for what tastes good, like it's like, oh wow. I mean, even in prep sometimes, when our calories get really low, it's like, oh, taste this. And like a normal person would be like, this is disgusting.
You see prep people posting that on their Instagram stories. They're like, this is how I made, it's like egg whites and they put syrup on it and they're pancakes. And you're like, nobody wants to see that.
Those
Nobody,
aren't pancakes. Yeah, sorry.
you tell yourself whatever you need to get to your goal right now. But
Right.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So for me, so yeah, diet got very limited. And again, I was 14 years old at the time. So going into high school and slowly running more and more. And people started to notice, like my family and like friends, like, whoa, Sarah's getting really lean. And so I'm again very lucky family wise. My aunt also had bulimia growing up. So my mom was kind of saw some of the red flags.
Sure.
So basically called me out, like, and this was a very short time period. So I think I started doing all this restricting like April, and by September I was like low 90s, 80 pounds and I'm still 5'4",
Yeah.
so 80, low 90s at 5'4", and I was never overweight to begin with. I think I was maybe 105 pounds, whatever, something like that. So lost weight pretty rapidly. So my mom took me to she took me to the gastroenterologist. Was
Okay.
the first doctor we went to, because I think I was trying to like pretend that like, oh, there's something just wrong with me. I'm just can't gain, like it's just weight's falling off of me. Meanwhile we're eating yogurt and apples, barely. So and exercising in my room, all this stuff, over exercise kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, the gastroenterologist, basically we went there and she looked at my mom and I gave her a food diary, like a recall of like what I had ate the last couple of days.
Was it an honest food diary?
I think it was over exaggerated. I think it was over exaggerated. And she still made this comment. She goes, "You are not even eating enough for a toddler." And I was, 14 years old athlete, and I was like, oh, like shit, like I'm busted, like
I
kind
think
of thing.
I think you get so into that world that, like you said, you lose track of what normal really is. And you're like, because you just keep pushing that line. And,
Yeah.
so you're like, so even though you fudged it, it still was ridiculously a low amount of calories. That's,
Right.
yeah.
So yeah, just like total denial kind of thing. And, from there, it was just a couple months of like fighting with my parents, like not being allowed to exercise. Like I was still horseback riding because I think my mom knew just how passionate that was for me. Like that was like the one thing, like, please don't take that away from me. Um, but just a couple, and I kept losing weight during this time. I started going to a therapist, but like I said, like we were just saying, still very much in denial. And you, with any type of recovery, my opinion, whether that's eating disorders, addictions, you have to want to recover. You have to want it. So I didn't want it. And eventually, come February, my second semester of, freshman year, I had to be hospitalized because my heart rate got so low,
Yeah.
scary, skinny.
Yeah.
And basically the hospital didn't do anything, was kind of nothing, no help there. But my mom was able to just, write some, letters to insurance companies and get me treatment. And I went to an inpatient treatment center. So I had my 15th birthday in treatment. So 14, 15 years old, went to treatment for the first time for my eating disorder.
So what made you switch then? Because I mean, I agree. I think if any type of a change in your life, people have to want it and they have to understand the risk of being willing to give up what they think is good and normal, and that process of exchanging it for something else. Like, is it
Right.
worth the effort? Is it worth the risk? So did you get some counseling there that caused this mindset change, or?
Yeah. So I did, like, I went to treatment for the first time. That's where I met my dietitian, who that was a huge help for me. That was like where I started to learn, oh, wow, our body's primary fuel source is carbohydrates. And oh, if I only eat deli meat and lettuce, my body's gonna start, basically eating my muscles away, and I'm
Right.
not gonna, so I started learning all this stuff. But I mean, so that was 15 years old. I kind of pseudo recovered, like just like kind of got by enough to be
Yeah.
okay, but I was still restricting, very rigid. Um, and then I relapsed in college, in my freshman year of college, and had to go back to treatment again. And I thought I wanted it that time. I thought, I was 18 years old, again, had my 19th birthday in a treatment center. So, and I thought that was it. Like, I thought I had got it that time, but I didn't. So that was 19 years old. And then I think when I was 20, I relapsed again. And this time I was going to be a sophomore in college and had been dating my now husband for about a year. Was kind of learning more about bodybuilding and stuff like that, but still doing all these things that were counterintuitive to that. And I started to relapse again. And I think it just hit me that it was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm going to go through this again. And my parents were kind of like, really again, like, they were going to take away, they weren't going to let me go back to school, if I didn't get it together. My husband was like, basically he was going to break up with me, and he was like, and he told me then, he's like, I want to marry you and you're doing this. I can't do this to someone that I, want to, and we had only been dating like a year at that time. But anyway, all this stuff. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, so I was just, like you said, that desire to change kind of outweighed that fear of change, basically.
So do you, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Do you think that, no, I lost my train of thought. Keep going.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll say, like, I think it's a lot of times, it takes several, rock bottoms,
Oh, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking about this earlier because I knew I was going to talk to you about eating disorders. And I initially started off when I was a teenager, my struggle was bulimia. And it wasn't
Mhm.
until I moved out of the house that it switched to more of a anorexia, running, exercise, anorexia type of a thing. But do you think that, you know, like people talk about eating disorders as like I'm ED recovered, and I feel like sometimes people say you can't recover from an eating disorder because you always have to eat. It's not like smoking or alcoholism where you can avoid these toxic
Right.
substances. But I feel like you don't ever, because now I struggle more with, if I say struggle, with more emotional eating, because that's, I think, kind of always been the trigger of it all,
Right.
is learning how to handle emotions. A lot of it stems from emotions or trauma or things like that. And do you think that you ever, like, is it always in the back of your mind as something that you could not necessarily fall back from, but it's always something that's a part of you, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't ever just be like, I don't ever struggle with food or with eating disorders or anything like that.
Right.
'Cause I would be lying if I said that.
No, yeah, I'm with you. Like I think like I use the term I'm in recovery,
There you go.
like from anorexia. Like I don't say like, yeah, I'm recovered, but like it's, and this is, I did go to, while I was in treatment, I was introduced to 12-step programs and AA. And it's cunning, baffling, and powerful is what they say, like those disordered thoughts. And like, I mean, this year alone, like that, the pandemic, for me, like we were supposed to get married in March, and had to cancel and reschedule our wedding, and fitting in a wedding dress, like all this stuff, like
Yeah.
like I knew this year, like before this year started, before I knew pandemic stuff, just with the wedding, I knew I was going to have to be kind of on it as far as
Yeah.
not letting, any thoughts come up, or,
Yeah.
kind of check in with my support systems. Cause, for me, like I would say a lot of my kind of eating disorder stems from perfection, control, wanting to be the best, like that super type A. And and for me, that's what it manifested as an eating disorder. Like you're saying, it's not necessarily, it's not about the food, it's about something else.
Right.
So yeah, so I would say, I can't speak for everyone, but for me, like I say I'm in recovery.
Yeah. And I always feel like too, like it will never, like I don't ever get to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to throw up my food. But I do
Right.
think like, there are like, oh, I was eating because I was stressed out, not because I was hungry. It's recognizing those behaviors. And I just feel like you might more be recovered from the extreme behaviors, where you're not going to fall back into, like, you're not going to need medical treatment, but it's something that you carry with
Right.
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we were going to kind of touch on the pandemic a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
when quarantine started, like, oh my gosh, like, well, I'm very, like I said, type A. So we hunted out some gym equipment, for at home, and made it work with what we had, and had some resistance bands. But I also started running again
Oh,
during the pandemic. And I was very cautious about it because I knew that tendency, for me to take
for
things
sure.
to the extreme.
Yeah.
Um, but so it wasn't really eating disorder as far as my running goes. Like I was loving it, like loving, running and feeling athletic. But I just, like, my personality, I took it too far and ended up with, I've never been injured in my life, and ended up, I couldn't even walk. My knee got so messed up. Luckily, I had a friend who was a physical therapist, and I got to see him during, even though everything was shut down. But that
Yeah.
was just, showed my, it can come up, here I went, I literally went from not running in years to trying to run 20 miles a week. And like my cardio was there, but
Right.
like, oh, Sarah, you can't go run on pavement and haven't done that. Your joints can't handle that.
Right.
So oops, learn. But I mean, and I'm transparent about all this with my clients too, because no,
Sure.
I'm not perfect. And like a
Yeah.
lot of times, I've been where you've been. I work with a lot of women who, are scared to eat, or, are scared to have those rest days. And like, I get it. Like, I get it. It's hard, so.
I think that, so John Jewett was a big mentor of mine for a couple of years, where he was really almost always available as far as like any coaching questions I had and whatnot. And
Mhm.
I've had several injuries over the years. I have hypermobile joints, and that's a huge contributor to, it's like I kind of picked the wrong sport to love, because it really, it really is a setup for having some injuries. But he always used to tell me, every time you have an injury, every time you have a setback, anytime you have a struggle, it always sets you up for an experience that's going to make you a better coach, or a better mom, a better just person, because you have a struggle that is relatable, especially for your clients. So I think,
Absolutely.
you know, it's a lot easier. It's like something, I think Shelby Starnes always says this too, that, if you want to know how to gain muscle, ask the person who's been struggling with it for 10 or 15 years. Or if you want to learn how to lose body fat, ask the person who's obese, who lost 100 pounds. You have to pick the people who aren't, people who are naturally gifted or naturally genetically just predisposed to building muscle or having an aesthetic physique, aren't necessarily going to know how to relate. You can have an education, but that experience is such a great teacher. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where I think like kind of, if I had a niche down, I love, working with women that, love, want to put on muscle, or,
yeah.
maybe they've been chronically dieting and we need a reverse diet. And they want to do all that, but maybe they're kind of stuck, and it's kind of, coaching them through that being stuck. Cause a lot of times I think people know what they need to do. They
Yeah.
just need that extra support, or like that person in their corner that's like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is the right thing to do. Like we're on the right, track here, kind of thing.
And then that encouragement to be consistent, because I mean, most people, even if they undercut their calories, if you can set them off on a good plan to start, and they're like, oh, it's not that big of a deficit, I actually feel really good. Okay, well, if you can do this and be consistent with it for a longer period of time, rather than the magical 1200 calorie diet that people do for 1 or 2 or 3 weeks and then fall off because they binge, you know,
Right.
um, again, that's what I love about your Instagram posts. It just hammers home these basic starting points for a lot of people, that I think we've been kind of brainwashed with, the food guide pyramid, and different, women's magazines and things are always offering, 1200 calorie diets and lifting with the little pink dumbbells. This is your
Yes.
workout. Like that's what I grew up with the weight training, was, the Self magazine, and, there's 8 pictures and they were holding these little pink dumbbells, and you just think,
Yeah.
I'd have to do 500 reps and then my joints are going to be aching because I'm,
Right.
weight.
And honestly, and I feel like that too, like how, I mean, that's boring.
Yeah.
Like, and then so then women do that and they're like, this is dumb, like this is boring. Like, and then they go back on the treadmill. That was,
Yeah.
me, is I had like, when I before I was like, I could say I was really lifting, I would do like some arm, and shoulder movements, some leg machines, but then I'd be like, I don't really know what to do. I'm just going to go on the treadmill.
Right.
Like, you
Right.
know, so that's why I'm really passionate about just like empowering women, to, to go to the gym and, get in the squat rack and, that kind of thing.
So what is some of your best advice for a woman who is just looking to start? Let's pretend gyms are open everywhere and they have
Yes.
their pick of, because I know, like, personally, I think people would probably find it funny that if I even go to like a new gym, it's pretty intimidating. I'm like walking up to new machines and reading them, because I don't really know always what something does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if I can imagine that scenario for a newbie, I know what it feels like to walk into the gym, or even like sometimes when the gym is packed, I
Mhm.
get nervous even just walking in, like, I need to know what I'm doing, which people aren't even looking at you. So it's really,
Yeah.
It's really
That's like the first thing is like what recognize that like think about how much you think about yourself. Like everyone else is thinking about themselves too. Like we
right,
think about other people for like a brief second and then you think back to yourself. But
right.
I so get it. I mean, the first time my dad took me to the gym when I was little, or in high school, I got on like the chest press machine backward, like so my stomach was against the back. And he's like, "What are you doing?" So
Yeah, gym fails. That's what.
yeah. So I get it. But I would say, like for women, I think again, education I'm so big on, like do your homework, like watch some YouTube videos. There's some good like, people out there like, like Jeff Nippard has a great YouTube channel. There's a lot of, GPS, there's a lot of great YouTube channels out there that can give you some good just advice on where to start. And you don't have to start getting in the squat rack. Like you
Right.
can start with goblet squats, because you can take a dumbbell, in a corner if you're not comfortable yet, and
Yeah.
kind of work up that, that confidence that, hey, I know I can master a squat pattern, I know I can hit parallel. And then, from there, like, I know not everyone has someone they know that lifts or, but if you do have like a friend that like really knows their stuff, like ask to tag along. Or I think it's even valuable to, before you go with the online training, like, I'm gonna plug against myself, for this, but working with someone in person can be very valuable, just investing in a couple, sessions with a trainer.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I always tell people too, you're a trainer is going to say, I'm going to set you up on a program for your goal, but you have to tell them that your goal is to learn how to train with weights in the gym. It's not to drop body fat or even to build muscle at this point, you know.
right.
So say I'm buying 6 sessions and I want to learn, I want to learn how to squat, I want to learn how to deadlift, and even like one of the things I tell people is educate yourself with the machines. Machines are a great, safe way to get started. Do you remember curves? It's like
Yeah. The woman's gym. Yeah.
yeah, it was like the 30-minute circuit, but I guess it totally fizzled out. But I think most gyms have like a women's section where you have those. And if somebody knew like you can get a full body workout just using these machines, it's definitely a way to start, without like doing too much or getting overwhelmed.
Right.
You
I
know,
like what you said too. Like when you first start, like your goal isn't necessarily like fat loss or building muscle. Your goal is to like learn these like basics, like kind of that base of your pyramid, right? Same with nutrition. Like, a lot of times, people come to me, I'm like, and I look at my fitness pal, like their food diary, and they're like, I want to diet. And it's all over the place, like it's like, and they haven't touched a veggie in like a month, so it's like, let's kind of get some basics, because if we
yeah,
can, your diet is going to be so much easier, your cut, if we can nail this kind of foundation.
yeah,
But that's not as glamorous to sell, so that's hard, to get someone to buy into, but
right.
um you
I
know
get with assessment forms, people tell me the diet they've been on for the last month rather than it's like, I need to know how you got here, not,
yeah,
you know,
not like what you did yesterday. Yeah.
right, right. Yeah. But it all starts with, what we were taught. It's nice that you have a good family foundation that at least you were brought up with, nutrition being something that
Yeah.
was a priority. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's true too. Or just not making a big deal of it. Sometimes people make a big deal about, foods being good or foods being bad, and then that causes problems down the line too. So,
Yeah, I would say a lot of the messages I got about that were more so like from the media, from magazines, right? So yeah, but like getting people out of that good food, bad food mentality is a huge part of coaching, because it just puts food on a pedestal. Like if you say like the Oreos are bad, like you're giving the Oreos all this power. And then, when you do get a chance to have the Oreos in the house, you can't control yourself, or you have two and feel guilty when there's no guilt earned, right?
yeah.
um
Yeah, the
so
the shame and the guilt is something that it's a huge thing that people have to, they struggle with. Not even just it's like, and then like to eat something and just be like, And I think that's one of the biggest things that changed with me too, because it's like, I was like, you know what, this is what I'm choosing to do right now. And it's okay. It doesn't make me a good person or a bad person. What I eat,
Yeah.
like, that's the craziest thing, is that people will decide their character based on their food choices,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, like I had this, conversation the other day with a client, like, like what happens if you just like, again, kind of thinking about those foods that people tend to overeat. It's like, what if you just gave yourself permission just to overeat it? Like, just see what happens. And like,
Yeah.
do it. And and she did. And she was like, it just wasn't like, she's like, I just won't do it again. She's like, that was like the end of the story. She's like, I don't necessarily, she's like, and now we're kind of getting to the point where like, we can go like to parties and like, we can say, no, thank you to this, or we can choose to have, some alcohol and some fun stuff and kind of accept the consequences, quote unquote. I may not feel so good the next day, right? Or yeah, I might feel kind of crappy because I ate this food, but maybe I'm choosing to eat this food because it's socially something that I want to do, right?
Right. So tell us a little bit about, are you concerned with, okay, so first I want to know about this process, because like I said, I've only been following you 3 or 4 weeks on Instagram, and everything is like, you're in a building phase now. Do you
Yeah.
have plans to compete again? And do you feel like, is that counterproductive to the message that you preach? Because I know I'm always very inquisitive about why someone wants to compete. And a lot of times they think that it's to get healthier, or you know what I
Ooh,
mean? And
yeah. No.
I think that, I mean, a bodybuilding competition is very similar to a marathon race, where it's not healthy for the body. It's a goal to be achieved. It's not someplace that you hang out. You're not going to be running 26.2 miles every day, because the
Right.
body will literally break down. So talk to us a little bit about what you're doing with your building right now. How do you feel about your body? How much weight are you up from where, like, what do you weigh now even?
Yeah, so I love this topic because it's tricky and it goes back to some things we were saying earlier. But so I competed last year, was actually my first season competing. So I kind of was in a, maintenance or building phase for about a year or two before that, working with a coach. And then, I decided I wanted to compete. This is something that I had always I'd wanted to do ever since I learned about bodybuilding. Like, I think the first girls I saw were like the WBFF girls, like Hattie Boyle, like, and I was like, oh my God, like she's jacked. Like I want to look like that. Um, if you guys can only see my shoulders, but you can tell that I don't look like that yet. Right. But anyways, so I wanted to compete last year, and my coach at the time, I was like, do you think I'm ready? Like, he's like, Sarah, like we could keep building and building and building and get you like making sure you're super competitive and all this, but like, what if we do that and you step on stage or you prep and you hate it? Like, then we did all this for nothing, right? So let's do it. Let's try it. Long story short, I loved it, kind of got the bug, but my feedback, from my show was, you're too small, like you're too lean.
Sure.
So, okay, like that was kind of the feedback that I knew I was going to get. So that was
Yeah.
last June. So June 2019. And I've been building since then, and I got crazy lean. I was, actually, I dropped weight like right after my show, just cortisol and everything.
Yeah.
But I was 92 pounds,
Oh,
like
wow.
93 pounds. Yeah.
What,
And I was 112 pounds this morning.
okay.
So,
Wow.
so I've gained 20 pounds, right? Yeah. So for someone that, yeah, I've had to gain weight many times in my life. I've been as low as, at my current height of 5'4", as low as 85 pounds. Like and that was more eating disorders. And I know this all sounds kind of messed up, oh, this girl that had an eating disorder got down to 92 pounds again. But, and it freaked my parents out, for anyone that's wondering that. Like, my parents were freaked,
Sure.
but had my fiance at the time, my now husband, in my corner, a lot of people in my corner. And the difference then was I had an exit plan. The plan was not to stay stage lean,
Yeah.
obviously, because like you said, stage lean is just, it's not healthy. It's a look for a purpose.
Yeah.
So I reverse dieted and started building, with my coach right after my show. But I would say, I didn't have any eating disorder stuff come up
So that's
necessarily, but I would say the hardest part for me post show initially was getting out of those like low calorie foods again and those safe foods, and
yeah.
kind of expanding my palate again to like having things like like post workout cereal or bagels or whatever it is, as opposed to like just super clean kind of stuff or like diet food.
So do you incorporate stuff every day, or do you have like a cheat meal every week, or how is it that you're kind of handling, or is it just all clean foods, or do you have a mix? Like kind of what's going on with this bulk, I know, or improvement season, let's
Yeah. So no, I know it's like I'm bulking. They're like, you? No. But yeah, so I do eat pretty clean. I mean, that's what I feel better, eating. But I do like
yeah.
intra workout, I'll have like those gummy bears. Like that's pretty, typical part of my diet, sugar, that sugar.
Yes.
Um, you know, going out to eat when we can go out to eat. I like, sushi is like my go-to. So like I guess like I do gravitate toward like more whole foods, cleaner foods, but like I am having things like cereal, like sugary, like honey nut Cheerios, like to get my carbs, stuff like that. Um, but yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. I totally am the same as far as like I'm like doing strawberry Captain Crunch right now post workout.
Oh, there you go.
I love this cereal. The cereal post workout works out very, very well. So
I've always been, yeah, cereal person, like running, like, when I was growing up, like I would have like bowls of cereal like at night because I just needed those carbs.
yeah, yeah. I was a swimmer and we did the same thing. It was
Oh yeah.
cereal. It was like,
I mean, you burn so many calories, like, and you need that. And that's like kind of, I kind of use it, like a lot of those foods, like even like bananas, like people are scared of bananas because like they're sugary. And I was scared of bananas too at one point, and like, what I try to explain to them is like, at first, like, kind of getting away from the good food, bad foods. But I explained to them, hey, post workout is a perfect time to have this bagel or this banana because like your body is like primed to like absorb these carbohydrates, right?
yeah.
So that kind of helps kind of break some of those barriers with those kind of foods.
Yeah, I've had that with several clients where we've done fruit and a protein shake post workout, and your body really wants to have that, that sugar after a workout, and a lot of times if you skip it, you're going to end up eating something else later just because you need to have those carbohydrates to replenish.
Yeah, that's big. Just like going too long without eating is another big thing that just
Yeah.
women struggle with. And then they end up, quote unquote binging. Like they're not even really binging. It's just that they're so hungry, that you're making up, basically for not eating all day, right?
And
So
just enough to not have you be in a deficit. You know what I mean? Like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be like you went to McDonald's, Taco Bell, and Burger King, but it's enough
right.
extra calories where you're like, well, I'm not getting to my goal. And then comes this disappointment and shame and guilt and all the feelings that come from failure when it really could have been resolved by being more timely with your meals.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know like, and that's, in a perfect world, yeah, we'd all be sitting down to, a decent meal, every 3 to 4 hours. But like I tell my clients, my moms especially, I'm like, pack a protein bar in your purse and like make sure it's not chocolate so it doesn't melt, but like that's like, your emergency bar, like, for any, and it's, keep it in the glove box of your car, and it's there, for those times when we can't sit down, right, to a meal.
So one of the things I love that you said was, I think with competing, you almost like looked that demon in the eye and you were like you said, you had an exit plan. You're like, I know exactly what I'm doing. I understand, especially from a parent perspective, how fearful your parents must have been. Like she
Mhm.
like literally diving into this hole that we've gone down so many times. But
Right.
basically in order to conquer it. And I think that's super cool.
Yeah. And I think like with that, like, people ask me all the time, like, can you compete with a history of an eating disorder? And I think you absolutely can. I think eating disorders are just like we said before, I could take out, my issues, my core kind of like limiting beliefs and stuff on anything. Like it could be eating, it could be alcoholism, it could be competing, but I'm choosing to use competing as a healthy outlet as opposed to using it as a, self-destructive type thing.
Yeah, perspective change a lot of things.
Right.
Um, so one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, one of your posts I thought was really, really great, and I wanted you to talk a little bit about it if you could. So a couple of dieting, like popular diets right now, I guess I would say popular diets are intermittent fasting and keto. And I think you've done posts about both of these, how there's, so a lot of the studies are done on men, right? We know
Right.
this because they don't have the hormone cycles. They have a 24-hour hormone cycle, where women have, a
Right.
28-day or 30-day hormone cycle.
Yeah.
So why is intermittent fasting not the best option for women? And same with keto, if you want to talk about that too.
Yeah. So with intermittent fasting, I mean, fasting in general is a stressor to your body, right? Like fasting, dieting slash fasting is a stressor, right? Like think about like caveman days. Like that was like the original stress is what I like to call it. Like we're in a famine or whatever, like we haven't found a lion to kill in a couple days, whatever it is, So like that's like the original stressor to your body. And a lot of us women, especially like women in general, are just more susceptible to stress because we're supposed to be the ones that are fertile, carrying a baby. So kind of nature made us more our hormones more kind of susceptible to these things, because if we're stressed, we don't want to get pregnant, which, not having this cycle is not necessarily, like not having a cycle is not really good for our health. Right. So anyway, so if you choose to diet, if you choose to start fasting, you're kind of starting that stress kind of response kind of to your body. And some women can handle it, right? But a lot of women already have a long history of dieting, or they already have all these digestive issues, or they're already a top level athlete and expending a lot of energy, or not even top level, but just, you're,
Yeah.
maybe a young active woman
Yeah.
lifting heavy, that's a stress, right? And then you add these things like fasting to your body, like trying to fast 16 hours, or, people ask me about doing like day long fasts. And I'm like, just be careful. Like, like be careful, because it's just not good. It can cause things like, low stomach acid. Like we need those calories to start, producing stomach acid. And if you don't have enough stomach acid, you're not going to break down your food. Now you're going to feel like crap. You're going to say like, oh, I need to not eat now because I'm bloated. But in reality, you actually need to eat to decrease the bloating. So stuff like that. And, with keto, not having those carbohydrates are so important for like things like thyroid health. Women especially, some women, I'm going to say, yeah, you can get away with it, but just because we can get away with something doesn't mean it's optimal, right?
When do you ask people what is your goal? Because I feel like even with fasting, people don't always think about, like, originally fasting was like a spiritual thing, right? A form of meditation, and people always want to like use it as a kickstart, almost a cleanse to, and it's like you can't all of a sudden drop any weight that you drop initially at the beginning of any type of a diet, is going to be water or glycogen.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
what's the goal, right? Do you think
Right.
people need to do do you need to do a cleanse, or will the bowels and the intestinal tract eliminate itself as it's supposed to just by incorporating whole foods and cleaning up your diet?
Right. It's always about like your intention. Like
Right.
I have had clients in the past say, "Hey, like I heard about this 24-hour fasting like as a spiritual practice, and I really want to try it and see like if I experience these emotional or these cognitive benefits that this person was talking about." I'm like, "Okay, we can try it, but here's our strategy in case it doesn't go well. I want you to have a pre-planned snack, make sure you're not driving and, during this fast or whatever." So I'm all about, you know, if you want to try stuff, that's great. But you know, what's kind of the intention behind it? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't need to fast to cleanse like, you know, your body. Most people just need to drink more water, you know, like it's a, you know, it's gimmicky, you know, a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Trying to make like someone's program like it's special because it starts out in this with this particular ingredients or this particular thing.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you like again, you're very real about all this stuff and very matter of fact with your answers for things. And it really helps people understand. So keep doing what you're doing. It's incredible.
I will. I know. I mean, I can hear it in my own voice, like that. I get all passionate about some of these topics.
I know you said, so I wanted to talk about your Facebook group too, and just anything that you want to put out there as far as where people can get in touch with you, if they're interested in coaching or, you know, I was thinking that I would definitely like to have you on the podcast in a more regular fashion because there's so many things I would love to talk to you about because I know that you have just a lot of education and experience with these things. So
I would love to. And I think like between us, you know, we could, you know, talking about just women and, you know, bodybuilding or even not even stepping on stage bodybuilding, but just this lifestyle, you know.
yeah,
So thank you. But yeah, I did just start a Facebook page. I had to just look it up over here because I forgot what I named it already. But I just started a Facebook group just because Instagram, I feel like the algorithm, it's all weird right now. And it's kind of nice just to have like a private discussion group. So I just started it a couple days ago. It's called Sarah Bishop Fitness Squad. So I think we got like 100 members in there right now. So off to a pretty good start, guys. So would love to have you on there. And
yeah,
yeah, on Instagram, I'm Sarah at Sarah Ford Bishop. So
yeah. I think that if you post that swipe up to your Facebook group on a pretty regular basis, then people, when they start, you know, following you, then they can just kind of slide in there and they'll have easy access
yeah,
to try
I
to.
think I'll do that after this podcast and shout you out for reminding me.
Nice, nice. All right, so next year, plans to compete next year, you think?
uh, I'm iffy. I'm with my coach right now, and I'm gonna just gonna see how it goes. You know, again, I now that I know that I like it, I wanna, you know, I wanna be competitive on the national stage, and I don't want to put my body through a diet or put my wallet through competing, you know, again until I know I'm like really ready, you know, and to be competitive on that level. So I might be on the gains train for all of 2021. We'll see.
I think that I think it's pretty common for people to step on stage the first time to get their feet wet before they're actually ready for it. And I think that's okay because it's good for someone to decide if it's for them or not for them.
Yeah.
As long as your expectations aren't to win, you know,
Right.
when you're up against people who have been putting in a lot more effort for a longer period of time. So
Yeah. It's all, like you said, all about expectations.
yeah, absolutely. So let's see. I want to make sure that we covered everything. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? Oh, and you have a new website, new logo, so people can find you there.
Yeah. So the website is still in the works. So that's to come. But if you are interested in, you know, one-on-one coaching, my email is sarahbishopfitness@gmail.com. But I would say, you know, I mean, I'm just super passionate about encouraging women to kind of challenge these messages, you know, and you know, a lot of times, you know, people or women, you know, they want to look toned, right? They want to have this toned body, which,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not going to be hard on you for thinking, you know, what toned means is muscle. Toned means muscle, right?
And
And
we're
to build muscle,
scared.
yeah,
Yes.
right. And to build muscle, you have to eat and you have to train hard, you know, with heavy weights, not the pink dumbbells, right? So I think what a lot of women don't realize is that your goal physique that, you know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having a goal physique as long as it's, you know, from a, you know, healthy kind of space or mindset. Your goal physique might require you to eat more and to weigh more.
Yeah.
Like let that sink in. Like that was the case for me, is
Yeah.
like I said, Hattie Boyle like was the first woman that I was like, wow, I want to look like her. And then I realized she weighed 30 more pounds than I did. And I was like, oh wow, like okay, like this is what I need to do to get that, kind of physique. And that was really empowering to me to say, oh wow, I don't have to be small, like I don't have to shrink myself, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's my final kind of message for today.
All right. I think that's awesome. And I've watched you lift. It's very, and we could go into all these other things, but I think the way you train and the way I train is very similar to the way, like how men are supposed to train. And there's not really, this is how women train, this is how men train. This is how you train in order to build muscle and restructure your physique and add that shape to it. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
And you won't look manly. Like I've been trying. It's really hard. Like I promise.
don't get too big. I love it when people say that. You're like,
Oh, I know.
I've been trying,
I'm trying. It's hard.
trying to get big. I know. Thanksgiving though was helpful yesterday. Did you?
Yes. I
Yeah.
had a good leg day today.
When leg day today. Yeah, I'm gonna go train in just a little bit. So yeah. So yesterday was Thanksgiving. I forgot to say that. This is like our Black Friday special, having Sarah on the show. So so did you train legs already, or are you headed out?
I did. Yeah, I trained this morning, so
Yeah.
got it done.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate having you on. I just want to add this disclaimer that all of this information is for educational purposes only and is risk assumed by the listener. But I'm really grateful for having you on. And I feel like, some of these other topics, hormones, digestion, how to train to build muscle, proper dieting, all these things are things that we could talk about again in more detail. And I look forward to having you, come back on again. So
Absolutely. Thank you.
thanks. All right. Well, have a great day. And we will talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.